Hello and welcome to Mandobug Crafts Live, episode 139. What's up, everybody? My name's Amanda, but you may know me on the internet as Mandobug, and this is my crafty podcast where I share what I've been working on lately. In today's episode, there is crochet design, and very wet sweaters. So if you're watching live, definitely say hi in the chat and ask me any questions or share any comments you have, and I'll be keeping up with chat the best I can during the live. And if you're watching the replay, you can leave your comments down below and I will get back to you usually within the week. So it looks like we've got Steve. Good morning, Steve. Happy Saturday. Yes. Happy Saturday for real. First, elbow cough cough. I wonder if my chat's by top chat instead of live chat because on my end, Steve was first, but that's because I work through StreamYard. So, but good afternoon there, Lacey. Hi. Good morning, afternoon, Maud, evening, I think. All right. So, starting out with something I've learned. I am working on a secret commission design, so I can't show you, but I'm going to do the best that I can to describe what I did and what I learned. And I don't think that's off limits. So I am currently in the middle of designing a pullover for babies to toddlers. So it's, a little like 3 months to 3T. And one thing that's really difficult about designing specifically pullovers for toddlers is they have massive heads in comparison to their necks. So for example, my 1-year-old has an 18-inch circumference head. That is only 3 inches in circumference smaller than my adult head, which is an average adult size head. She's got this giant head and her neck, let's compare it to her bust. Her bust is about, oh my goodness, 20 inches versus, it's like 2/3 of mine. So I don't even know if that's right because I'm just roughly throwing those numbers out there. But you know what I'm talking about. You've seen these giant head babies in these tiny little bodies. So what people do typically, and you'll see this in manufactured clothing as well as like knit crochet designs, they will have buttons around the neck so that you can unbutton the opening to get a tighter neckline. But the design that I was doing, I didn't want to do that. And I can't talk about why, but I couldn't use that as an option. So I was doing my best to figure out how can I make sure my pullover neckline is wide enough to get over these babies' giants' heads, but also not be like this super wide boat neck. I didn't want that either. So what I ended up doing was I calculated the math for the neckline differently than I do normally. Now, I haven't found a lot of resources out there for even knitting because there's not a lot of crochet sweater design resources. I typically rely on knitting resources. But even then, it's hard to find resources when it comes to neckline design and shaping. So I've kind of just been like testing different things and finding what works well for me. So this time, this is a drop shoulder pullover, and I'm not putting any shoulder shaping in it. So that means the top of the sweater is straight and all that straight excess falls off past your shoulder here. So what I did was I took the drop shoulder length. So your drop shoulder is from the top of the back of your shoulder straight out. If there was an imaginary line there, it's the difference between where my finger is and where my shoulder is. So I subtracted that. And then, I subtracted that 4 times, right? So the drop shoulder on each side of the neckline in the front, and then also the back. So I subtracted that distance. And then I subtracted how much farther I wanted the neckline to go down in the front. And then I looked at what was left over and split that in half between the front and the back. So that's how I determined how wide the initial decrease, because I'm doing this bottom up, that's how I determined how wide the initial decrease was going to be for the neckline. And then those subtractions of the drop shoulders and the front neckline drop, those are row wise. So you've got your initial decrease stitch wise, and then you've got your decreases row wise. So I used both my stitch and my row gauge to figure out this neckline is going to fit this giant tater. And I was kind of like, just like hoping this is going to work out. I'm like, this fundamentally makes sense. I've subtracted my drop shoulder in the front and the back. I've got my extra drop in the front. If I subtract that all from my desired circumference, I'm left over with the distance times 2 of how wide my neck is going to be in the front and the back. And all the numbers looked good. I didn't know until I made it, and I made it. And luckily the sample I'm making is in my daughter's size. So I was able to try it on too. And it worked like a dream. It worked wonderfully. So I don't know if this is something that exists. I don't know if this is something that people do already. It's likely that it could be, but I've never seen anyone sharing that. So I figured I would share that process. And then also, I don't know if this is something that would work super well for adults. I haven't really thought about that yet. Oh, and I should also mention there's no, the neckline finishing doesn't come in like a ribbed, like some of like my sweaters I'll talk about today. I usually also subtract a distance for the ribbing so that the ribbing doesn't come up your neck. It goes into your shoulders. That was not a part of this. So had I had that kind of neckline for this design, I would have also had to subtract that, but I didn't. So that too. But yeah, I was super excited it worked out. And I was like, it blew my mind. But that is something I've learned. And let me catch up with the rest of you this morning. I think Steve snuck in there on me. Maybe he did beat you. Let's see. I'm a good sport. You can have this one uncontested. My husband called our son Top Heavy as a nickname for years. I remember you mentioning that, Lacey. Yeah, I had a brother. I have a brother, but he's grown into the size of his head. It's still a very large head, but as a kid, his head was so large in comparison to his body. When he would run, it would just kind of like do this. That was the cutest thing to watch at T-ball because I'm like 10 years older than he is. Good morning, Catherine. I still have a giant head, so exactly. That is one of the issues with pullovers. If you want a tight crew neck, is making sure it's not so tight that you can't get it over your head. I've seen some really funny Instagram reels of people sharing that actually happening to them. Good morning, Lindsay. How is your garden coming along? My middle child learned to walk by standing and leaning forward. I can see that in my mind, his head just like, here we go. That is so funny. Hello. You are so right. Other than the button in the back or once in a blue moon, you'll see an envelope neckline. I'm impressed by this discovery. Yes, that's the other thing, the envelope, right? Where they're, you see that a lot on newborn onesies, where it's folded over, but it's actually not sewn until the sleeve part. So you can really pull it apart and then it folds back up. I think I just really lucked out getting into the toddler size. And also, I don't know that a lot of necklines take into account the shoulder drop. And I couldn't find measurements for the shoulder drop on children and babies. So I guesstimated based on the rate that they increase for adults and then also looking at my daughter. And so having a dip in the neckline in the back added, that much twice to the overall circumference. And I think that really helped. I'm sure somewhere has done this right, but it's definitely not something that most designers do. I looked at a ton of baby patterns not long ago. Yeah, it definitely has to be something that people do. I just don't know if they're talking about it or sharing it anywhere is more the thing. I'm not trying to say I came up with something new. I'm just saying I learned something new. I guess that was my whole point of mentioning that. Is that exactly what he looked like? His little twinkle. That is so funny. Your garden. I need to finish bagging the giant pile of brambles so you can finish your hose project. Yeah, sometimes we have difficult children days. I know exactly how that goes. All right, so that was something that I learned. Moving on to finished objects. I only have finished objects this week, you guys. No works in progress. I have been finishing things. So let's start with the Skyshard Mosaic Cowl, since the crochet along is starting on Monday. So I finished the worsted weight version, and I really love how thick and squishy this turned out. It's so thick and squishy. So I'll throw it on and I'll show you the yarn. I actually wore it all day, like 2 days ago. I was filming some TikTok videos with it, and I just left it on because it was freezing outside. And then I went out on a lunch date with my partner for the first time in what feels like forever, and it was so nice. When you have 3 kids, it's hard to get alone time. And so when I wore it out to lunch, the waitress complimented me. And then I also got another compliment out at the store. And they're like, oh, I really like yours. They called it a scarf. So they're obviously non-knitters or crocheters, but how nice to get a compliment on not only something I made, but my own design. It's so exciting. So the worsted weight cowl is super great for very, very cold weather. So if you live somewhere that's super cold, it turned out really, really nicely. The design is a little more hidden because it gets so blown up at the new gauge that you don't really see it as much when you wear it, because there's only 2 repeats of the design, but I still think it looks nice and it's super warm. So the yarn, I put it all the way. I don't know why I put it all the way over here. The yarn is Hobbii Lollipop Melange for the main color, and this is color 8. It is a 30% superwash merino wool, or not merino, superwash wool, 70% acrylic. I didn't even use half of this giant cake, so I have plenty left over for something to coordinate or a completely different project altogether. And then I also used Hobbii Amigo XL. This is what remains of the second 50-gram skein. So I used maybe half of it, maybe not even half. So I could pair these together for something else later. These are worsted weight yarns. This one's 100% acrylic. I really like the way they work together. I really like the colors that I paired. Oh, and this one is color 11. Color 8 and color 11. I used a 5mm crochet hook, and yeah, I'm really happy with the way it turned out. And if you want to join the crochet along and do the worsted weight, you could make this cowl in a day or even 2 days. Or if you have very limited crafting time, maybe a week if you put just a couple minutes into it. So it works up very, very quickly, which is nice. So I did put out that announcement video for the crochet along. That's got all the details in there. But basically, I'm hosting a crochet along for this cowl starting Monday, runs through the end of March. The pattern download, the PDF download, will be free for the duration of the crochet along. Hashtag Skyshard CAL for social media. And yeah, so I love this. The one thing that I didn't expect when I washed it, I think it was the Melange. I don't think it was the Amigo XL. I wet block everything that I wash, and I've got a giant bottle of Eucalan and the Rapture Jasmine scent, which is my favorite. And so I just put, lukewarm, sometimes a little warmer than that water with the soak. I let the piece soak for 20 minutes, sometimes longer if I forget. Wring it out, lay it flat to dry. This color bled all over. The bath was just this bright turquoise, which I know turquoise is a color that's hard to get to set. As someone who's like dabbled in dyeing stuff before, I've definitely struggled to get this kind of turquoise dye to really set. So obviously the color didn't wash out the yarn. I think there might have just been excess dye in the yarn that washed out when I bathed it, which wasn't a problem because my contrast color is both acrylic and dark. But if you were working with another natural fiber or natural blend fiber and it's a lighter color, it could have kind of over dyed, like maybe a white wool, possibly. So I did want to mention that. That was surprising. And then it also took like 4 or 5 days to dry, which is why I have wet sweaters, but I will still show those off as well. It's been very rainy here. We've had a little bit of flooding. Thankfully, we're completely fine, but we had like late starts with the kids' school because of the roads flooding with all of the rain. So yeah, it's just everything's wet and taking forever to dry. So yeah, that's the Skyshard Mosaic Cowl worsted weight version. The pattern calls for 180 yards of each. But yeah, it is so squishy and warm, and I love cowls like this that you can just throw on and run out the door, and you're super warm. Let's catch up. And since I'm talking about the cowl, here's the worsted weight if you haven't, or the fingering weight if you haven't seen that one yet. And there's the seam. Somehow I always manage to put the seam in the front the first time I throw it on. Oh, and the inside's really fun too. So let's see. Lacey's saying, I think your process very well could be something new, though. Maybe, maybe not. I mean, because it fundamentally makes sense logically, I feel like anyone could kind of think their way through that process if they choose to do a neckline like that. If they choose to shape the neckline, which, takes more work. It's a finished object week, which feels great because I went so many weeks without any finished objects because I was working on those two and then working on things I can't share. So those blues are stunning with your eyes. Thank you. Yeah, I've been trying to, I do like teals and blues, and I've been trying to wear more because they do really pop my eyes. That looks fantastic. Thank you, Catherine. Hi, Mocha. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining the live stream. My Hobbii yarn is still in Chicago. It's been there for days. So I have noticed myself, having ordered from Hobbii quite a bit over the last about a year, I think. It seems like they've switched their shipping services. I don't know exactly how it all works internationally, right? Because this is all coming from Denmark. But I know that I am now getting my packages through the postal service, the U.S. Postal Service, I think, instead of what was FedEx before. And of course, I think this is going to vary depending on your area. But because of that, it has been more difficult to track my shipping, and there seems to be a little more delays, which sucks. But I think it's all part of trying to find the best shipping options available when you're trying to ship a product internationally. I know that my Melange and Amigo XL order, this last haul that I did, was the first time it came through a different shipping service. So, and it did take longer than usual. So we'll have to see how it's going. Who knows why, but hopefully it gets to you soon. Hi, Reggie. Thanks for joining the live stream today. Everybody's saying hi to Reggie. And that's the same reason I like to wear certain greens. Yeah, I remember when I worked at my local yarn shop, a gal came in and she's like, I had my colors done. So I want to pick, the colors of these yarns for sweaters in my colors. And I guess I was too young to know what that meant. I guess it was a thing that people would come and professionally go through your wardrobe with you to find your colors, the colors that really make your eyes or your skin or your hair, all the colors of you really look the way that you want them to, I guess, because attractiveness and beauty is all opinion based. It's in the eye of the beholder. So it's to help you feel your best and look what you feel like looks your best. I didn't know people did that. And then it got me to thinking, like, when I wear colors, to keep an eye out, like, oh, that really doesn't look that good. It makes my skin look green and I look sick, kind of a thing. They have used to be DSL and then FedEx, and now it's USPS, but my stuff is coming quicker and nothing's gotten lost in Memphis. Well, that's great that you are experiencing better shipping. I think it's really just like a working through the kinks kind of a thing. I know FedEx, I used to have rips in my bags all the time. So that hasn't happened, but I've only gotten one through the USPS so far. So I feel for those of you overseas having to wait that long on your Hobbii orders. Yeah, it probably comes to you pretty quickly. I've heard about winter, spring, summer, autumn types, and gold or silver types. Exactly. That's what the gal had mentioned. I don't remember what she was specifically, but yeah, she was a season. I don't know what I am. I just know that my eyes really pop when I wear blues and teals and whites, even though I love to wear black and orange, which is why I made that sweater in white. That sounds like a fun service and a fun job. I'm sure it's one of those things where it might be difficult to actually have a job like that as a full-time job, because I don't know what the demand for a skill like that is, but wouldn't it be fun? Kind of, you know? Uh, Milk says, I think you're a winter. Well, that makes sense. Now that you pointed out, knowing that I really like the way I look in blues and whites, that makes total sense. Thank you, Mocha. All right, so my next finished object, I've got 2 very wet sweaters that are done, but they're wet. So I'm gonna show you what they look like. I finished them both yesterday, and I just couldn't wait because I'm like, I can wait and share them dry, but I really wanted to block them, and so I did. So you guys get wet sweaters. So, and so I wet blocked them, like I mentioned with my process with the Eucalyptus, soaking them, and then with something as big as a sweater, I really make sure when I hand wring it out as gently as I can, and then I roll it up in usually 2 towels because the first towel, because it soaks, especially if it's wool, which these 2 are. If it's wool, it really retains that water after a while, and you really got to squeeze it out, especially with the Eucalyptus in there. I read a really great article. I wish I could remember who wrote it. I think it was Jillian Moreno, but I could be wrong. But she talked about how wool washes have chemicals in them that help penetrate, because wool's naturally water resistant, especially if it has lanolin in it. But when you add the wool wash, it helps. There's some chemical in it that helps penetrate the wool, and it really starts to absorb that water. So it gets really heavy, and you don't want the weight of the water stretching everything out. So I carefully squeeze out as much as I can and roll it up in a towel. The towel usually is super soaked, and I have to do it in a second towel. So they're very damp, but they're not dripping, obviously. I laid them out flat last night, and they're probably going to take 2 to 3 more days to dry because of my weather, but they're done, and I'm so excited. So this one, these are both new designs. This is the Ice Cream Delight cardigan, which is the adult version of the Ice Cream Party Cardi I made for kids. This gorgeous sweater is made using Hobbii Tweed Delight. Hobbii Tweed Delight. I ordered way too much yarn, so I have enough for maybe a matching sweater with both of my daughters, honestly, because I totally guessed at how much I would need and just kind of went a little crazy. This yarn is 85% wool, 10% acrylic, 5% viscose. It's a worsted weight. This is color number 1, and it is this gorgeous single ply yarn with so much tweed in it. I absolutely love it, which lended itself very well to getting frogged, because when it frogged, because it is a single, it's got this little bit of fuzzy halo, and because it's wool, it wants to attach to itself. So when I had to frog and redo the front panels, I got some pilling, but the pilling looks like tweeds. So no regrets there. When this sweater gets worn and worn and worn, and you can see some right there, that little pill, the pilling looks like it's supposed to be there because it's already got all the tweed bits in it. So I finished filming the tutorials, and I've got the buttons on, which I absolutely love how these buttons look on this yarn. They are, I'm trying to face the camera. They are from Benno's Buttons. I ordered them to go on potentially on a different sweater. I ordered 2 different wood type buttons like this. I think they're faux wood, or they could be coconut. I'm not sure. But these ones did not win the other sweater, and so I had them in stash, and I pulled them out, and they look perfect. I will go ahead and throw this on, but do know, because it's wet, it is larger and stretched out than it will fit when it's dried, because I know that I've showed you guys as I've been trying this on, my actual gauge did not meet my swatch gauge, and it's a very tight sweater on me. I'm hoping as I lay it out to dry that I can actually pin it in place. Last night when I laid it out, it was measuring a 40-inch bust. So as it dries, it's gonna shrink back up because it's wool. But I'm hoping if I can pin it in place at the 34-inch bust that I want, then maybe I can still model this sweater with its intended fit. But let me go ahead and oh my gosh, you guys, this is so damp. Have you ever put wet clothes on from your dryer? Like sometimes your jeans don't dry all the way, and then you put them on and you're like, oh, these are like damp. That's what's going on right now. But so here it is. it gives you a good representation of how the sweater would fit if you made it with 8 inches of positive ease, which you can always do with a pattern. You can always, if it's recommended for your bust size to fit with like 2 inches of ease, you can just go up to the next size or 2 sizes to get however many extra inches of ease you want to get an oversized sweater. So it is, you can see the sleeves are way too long because it's still wet. Before blocking, they were like here, and that's where they will dry. Wool is such a wonderful yarn for that. But this pattern is the same throughout, so there's no waist shaping. It's going to shrink up to my hips, but definitely going forward, if I ever do any sweaters that are longer, like I like, they need to have hip increases because most people's bust is smaller than their hips. So I do want to do that going forward. I've been talking about this cardigan a lot, so I'm trying to remember the basics of it. This is a modified drop shoulder, meaning that there is an underarm cutout in the front and back pieces. A traditional drop shoulder does not have any shaping under the arm, and it would, the front here would stop here. So it's modified in that there is a little bit of rectangular armhole shaping. It is seamed, so all the pieces are worked flat and then seamed together. And it has shoulder shaping. So instead of more traditional drop shoulder sweaters, they have a rectangle here. I went ahead and decreased along the slope of your shoulder because I go on and on and on about how many cardigans that I've made for my narrow shoulders that fall off. So I made sure that the modification under the underarm makes your cross back tighter. So you've got stitches that come into your underarm instead of out into the armhole space. And that helps snug the fit to your crossback. And then the shoulder shaping helps keep it on your shoulders. So I don't feel like this is falling off. It's buttoned right now, but you can tell with the deep V-neck that the design has that it would be more likely to try to fall off. So that was that. There is slip stitch ribbing on the cuffs and the whole button band with buttonholes and the bottom. Other than that, this entire sweater is half double crochet. I wanted to just make a basic sweater, learning how to design a V-neck and design a cardigan that fits well. So let me catch up with you guys in chat. Hi, Marquita. Thanks for joining the live stream. So glad you can make it this morning, afternoon. It looks surprisingly more gray now, all worked up. Maybe because it's still wet. Yes. Yep. It is. It's because it's wet. It is darker because it's wet. I noticed that last night when I laid it out. I was like, wow, it looks gray, but it is actually a very bright white. Isn't that crazy? This is the same yarn. It's just dry. Oops, Marquita. It looks so cozy. Yeah, it's making me wish I had made the 40-inch bust now. So, lesson learned. Because it's going to shrink. It's going to shrink back up to where it was, which is too tight for my liking. So, it's a bummer. Because this is a single, I don't want to cut and frog it and redo it because it will just, I've already frogged and redone it twice. So, not all of it, but the front panels. So, let's see. Yeah, texture freak out alert. Yeah, absolutely. That's what you get with the tweed. Very nice, Cardi. Thank you, Reggie. It's a really nice length. It is. But it's going to shrink probably up to about here, I think is where it was. But I do like longer cardigans. I just have to make sure to add hip shaping in the future when I do that. Oh my gosh, Amanda, so cute. Thank you. I know the other thing that's really nice about it, because it is damp, which is also like, you have to take that with a grain of salt. Once this dries, it's going to lose some of this drape. Like, it has amazing drape right now because there's wet weight to it. When it dries, it will be a little stiffer, but I love the drape that wool has. So, oh, lost it. So Pretty, thank you. I'm going to get back to mine this weekend. I put it in timeout because it was bad. I love it. Yeah, I don't blame you there. So that is, let's see here. Divergent crafter. Any suggestions on how to get a good fit on an hourglass pear combo shape? Right. I'm not so wide shoulders. I'm oddly shaped shorty. So it depends on if you're going to completely design it yourself or if you're going to go off of someone else's design. If you want to go off someone else's design, this is tough because my favorite thing to do is to do top-down seamless sweaters because you can try them on as you go, but there are a lot of fit issues with those. If you can find a top-down seamless sweater that fits you well, then once you get past your bust, you can take your bust measurement, your waist measurement, and your hip measurements, and you use your gauge to decide how many stitches you want in those areas. And then you measure the distance between your bust and your waist, and then the distance between your waist and your hip. And then, so let's say if there is a 10 stitch difference between your bust and your waist, you want to decrease 10. There's a 10 stitch difference from here to here. And this is the length you want to decrease it in. You know, okay, well, I want to decrease 10 stitches. Oh, look, that's about 10 rows. So you decrease 1 stitch every row until you get to your waist. And then from your waist to your hips, let's say that's a 20 stitch difference, but it's the same distance. So now you're increasing 2 stitches every row out to your hips. So that's the best way to do it, is to know your gauge. Start with the circumference you have, the circumference you want, and how far you want that apart. It's all rates, but I think that would be the best way to go about it. And then if you already got the top seamless part, you don't have to worry about all the math of your shoulder stitches and your front stitches and your back stitches. But sometimes finding a top-down seamless sweater that fits your bust well is also a struggle. But that's kind of how I would start to address that. Did you attach the edging last? So cute. I did. Yep. So this, so you've mostly seen this cardigan up to this point with no ribbing. I think the last time, a couple weeks ago, I had the ribbing up to like here. So now I've got the ribbing across the rest of the neck and came down and I did my buttonholes. I'll go ahead and unbutton it so you guys can see. There we go. So now I have my buttonholes. So wearing it unbuttoned, it's going to be much wider, but that shoulder shaping and the tight cross back should help keep the cardigan on your body. And let's see. It's wet, so I don't know how well it'll show, but there is a little bit of a dip. So I was talking about that earlier with the neckline shaping, how for this design, I subtracted the shoulder drop, but also the ribbing length so that you can see how far down the actual sweater came before the ribbing was added. So that is something to take into account when you're doing necklines as well. Could playing with hook sizes help? Yes, but playing with hook sizes also changes the density of your fabric. So going up in hook size to make the fabric larger, especially with crochet, is going to open up those gaps between your stitches. So you will have a wider fabric, but you're also going to have a holier fabric, probably in the areas you don't want, the wider areas. So I wouldn't do that, but you can. I wouldn't recommend doing that, I guess, but you can. But it all depends on what you're going for. If you do want it open and looser there, then you totally go for it. That's smart. I want to know too. I mean, I've seen sweaters, especially knit. I saw a knitted cabled sweater that was shaped using needle sizes. So tighter needles around the midsection to get a tighter fit there. But it does. It changes the density of your fabric. So your fabric's going to be tighter and stiffer there, which I guess maybe something that you want more like a corseted feeling fit. But if it's not a tight fitting sweater, if you want to have some positive ease to it, that might just look funny. If you've got this like loose baggy fabric and then this tight, I think if you're going to do it, it's going to have a very specific aesthetic and it should be intentional to the design. I guess most often is better to just go ahead and shape it out with increases and decreases if possible. Freaking smarty pants. That's the same thing you taught me for the fingerless mitts. Dude, I'm telling you, take the Math for Designers class by Edie Ekman. Like once you kind of get the fundamentals of how shaping works with math, then it's like this whole like, what? um, let's see. Thanks. I cannot find anything that fits right in stores or patterns. So going rogue, that is the best way to go. And honestly, I am excited and happy for you. Just be patient and yeah, really just be patient because it's going to take some time and frogging and frustration. But once it's going to be worth it when you get there. Yeah, I saw someone's tutorial that used that method. I filed that idea in case I ever needed it. The different hook sizes. Yeah, I mean, it's a possibility. It's definitely something you can do. Reggie's saying crochet math is the key. It really is. This sweater would not have fit without math. And I think I would have just pulled my hair out trying to do it and rip it out and do it and rip it out, hoping each time that I guessed the right numbers. So save yourself the time and do the math in advance. Also, it feels really nice to have the pattern done in advance. So because like these patterns are both already written, I still need to add the yardage requirements and like some fine details and do photography, but then they're ready for my tech editor. And then I'll be asking for testers. I did decide to run them both at the same time. I'm hoping that's not going to be a mistake. But my tech editor usually catches all major mistakes. The only other things are going to be with the fit. So we'll see. But yeah, so that's the Ice Cream Delight cardigan that is still damp. The other cardigan is my everyday swing cardigan, and I think I'm going to change the name, and I will show you guys why. And I'm going to preface this one because this one is superwash merino wool, so it really grows with blocking, wet blocking, and I don't know how much it's going to shrink because I didn't measure my swatch before and after blocking. So this one's going to look ridiculously way too long. I already know it. I saw it when I pulled it out of the water, but it should shrink back up quite a bit. I guess next week, once these are dry, I'll have to do another model for them because it's not really fair to see them all wet. So, everyday swing cardigan. This one is using Stardust Fiber Studios Delphinus Sport, which is 100% superwash merino wool. It's sport weight. It's 328 yards per 100 grams. And this is in the Pumpkin Queen colorway, which was a color that was dyed based on my favorite color. It's exclusive to the new knittery. And this cardigan ended up taking, I ordered 9. They have one that they're redoing because it had the white spots in it. It ended up taking 7 and change. So you'd need 8 overall for the size that I made. But oh my God, look at how stretched out this is because it's superwash and wet. You guys, look at this. It will shrink back up. I'm not worried about that. How much? I don't know, but it will shrink back up. But look how long. It's supposed to be here. And it will probably dry here. But right now, this is where we are. Because we are still heavy with water. But I finished the ribbing around the entire front of the cardigan, which you can see the second set of yarn that I ordered, the difference in color here. So I'm glad that I saved it for the neckline because it looks like it was pretty much intentional, but that is a difference in dye lots. I ordered my first 6 skeins thinking that was enough, totally forgetting about how much extra fabric this design has. And then I ordered 3 more. This neckline ended up taking 1 and just a little bit more of a second skein, which was this one. And then I have that 3rd skein that I used just a little bit at the bottom of the sleeves. It's the darkest of them all. And then the one I sent back and I'm having replaced. But so originally when I had this design, this construction design in mind, I wanted to call it the Cover Me Up cardigan because it's heavy in the front as far as material. I like to hide in my cardigans. I like to be covered up in my cardigans. And then I started making it. And without this front ribbing, I've showed you guys, the front panels increase the full width of your body in most sizes, not the largest sizes though. And it's got this like large angle and it drops down in the front. So it swings, which is why I named it the Everyday Swing Cardigan. But with this new panel on it, it doesn't swing as much because the panel is heavy. So I might change the name back to what I was calling it originally, which is the Cover Me Up Cardigan. But this extra weight is what helps keep it on in the front. And it's not laying very well because of the wetness, I'm sure. But when it was still dry, these lay open. It is so long because it's wet. It's ridiculous. But yeah, it is so cozy. And when I put it on last night before I washed it, it just fit like a glove. It feels so good. This is a modified, here I am modifying everything, right? It's a modified top-down seamless raglan. Modified in the sense that typical raglans, and you can see my increase is all stretched out here. Typical raglans increase at the same rate. And I have, my rate slows down. And it doesn't increase. Well, that's the rate, right? The increase rate changes to accommodate the specific measurements of the arms, the crossback, and the fronts that I wanted. So that gives a little bit of a better fit. So top-down seamless modified raglan. It's all half double crochet with single crochet in the back loop ribbing on the wrists, on the bottom, and then this front band. The sleeves, you guys, many of you, all of you here today, remember that you guys helped me figure out how to do that, where you turn, even though you're working in the round, to keep the half double crochet pattern on the sleeves to match the body. But yeah, it's so, my armhole depth right now is so low because of it being wet. It's nuts. Let me catch up with you guys. I was wondering what kind of fabric to aim for with the Skyshard cowl when doing a gauge. Do you want it to be tighter or average? I'm assuming not looser because of the mosaic. Yep, absolutely, Mod. So I would say it's a very average. It's a very average feeling gauge. It's not tight or dense. And it's definitely not loose. If you do it too loose, that will distort the ability of the overlay part to hide the color behind it. If it's too loose, you might see that black peeking through. So you want something tight enough that you can't see through it, but not so tight that it's a cardboard cowl. Hi, Lori. So glad you could make it today. I thought you might be out at the farm. Love the color and fabric. Thank you. It is swallowing you. Still looks like I'd want to wear it forever. Yeah, it is very massive right now, but I really do expect it to shrink up quite a bit. I've had this happen with superwash sweaters in the past when they're wet. So yes, this is the soccer mom sweater. Hide me away forever while I watch my kids play soccer and other sports and stage mom, all of it. I like the Cover Me Up cardigan. Yeah, it's wet. So whenever I have an idea, if I ever have a name attached to it, I will name all my files that. And that's what I had it all named. And then I switched it. And now I'm pretty sure I'm going to switch it back. Pumpkin Queen. Yes, they really nailed the color. Originally, I think this is like my favorite. The new dye lot came in much brighter. I don't like it as much as the original, but I know that happens. So. Oh, you like the Cover Me Up cardigan too? Well, that's an easy fix. I need this sweater. It is, I think you'll love it. It's so cozy. Like that specific one. That color is gorgeous. Thank you. Yeah, I love orange so much, and it's really hard to find orange in the store. You would never find this color cardigan in the store, I don't think. Like it. I've never seen it, and I don't think it would ever happen. So it's very nice to be able to just make it for myself. And to have my favorite color dyed for me, it was a great opportunity when I worked at the New Knittery, which I have since just left my very short time position with them. You got your young dog back from herding school last week, so you didn't have to pick her up today. Oh, yeah, that's right. I saw that on Facebook. So that is my last finished object for the week, and I'm going to take it off because it's wet and it's cold. So moving on to check it out. I swatched up Kind Feather. And Mocha, this was mostly for you because you kept going, have you worked with it yet? Have you worked with it yet? Have you worked with it yet? And I hadn't. So I wanted to work with it and give it a try. And I did get a suggestion in my haul video to do a spring top. I don't remember if they had specifically said for my 1-year-old or not, but that's where my mind went. Oh yeah, spring top for my daughter would be so stinking cute. So this is Kind Feather, 100% acrylic, 100 grams, 235 meters or 257 yards. It's number 3, DK weight, yarn. Now, the ball band recommends a 4mm crochet hook, but I used a 5. I started working with a 4 and I did not like the gauge I was getting at all. Switched to a 5 and was much happier. And which I wrote it on the ball band so I wouldn't forget. This yarn's really interesting. I showed off in the haul the construction. It's like a cable plied yarn with a bunch of 2-plies then plied together, which gives it like this crazy high, it has this crazy high twist to it that you don't see because, I mean, that's nuts. It's literally like wrapped looking, almost like a core spun looking yarn, but it's not. So here's what I swatched, and I absolutely loved working with the yarn, and I love the fabric that I'm getting now. This swatch is also wet. I blocked it when I blocked my sweaters, so it's gonna have more drape right now than it will when it's dry because it has the weight of the wetness in it. I know this is acrylic, but I wet block everything the same. So I decided to swatch up just several rows of single crochet, and I like the way it feels. And even though I know it's wet, so you can't really get a good idea for the drape, it had really nice, it wasn't stiff. Like it wouldn't say it's like has crazy amounts of drape, but it wasn't like super stiff at all, even though I really like the fabric it's making. And I immediately thought, I want a textured stitch cardigan out of this yarn for me. And when I swatched this, the whole intent originally was for a spring top for my daughter. But this yarn really isn't like a spring type yarn. It is very it gives me very cozy sweater vibes. Like I want a sweater out of this yarn. I think I may have enough left over from this one skein just to go ahead and pop out a like almost 2T top, especially because lace like work doesn't take up a ton of yarn. But I definitely want to go back. I'm going to keep an eye on when the yarn goes on sale and get a sweaters quantity for myself for to me, it feels like those cozy store-bought sweaters, the cozy store-bought acrylic, like polyester sweaters. Like that's what it feels like. So that's all I keep thinking is textured, oversized cardigan. And I even like this color. Like that's so weird because I don't like pink, but this is the kind of pink that I like, this dusty color. I would wear this. I would wear even this color. So that is how it worked up. Let's see. Exactly. Boring stores. But yeah, I mean, so what if me and Reggie are the only ones that want to buy the orange sweater? You still need to offer it. Hi, gorgeous sweater and color is beautiful. Thank you, Wendy. Hypertonal. Oh yeah, on the orange, the hypertonal. It's really nice and fun and not something that you're going to be able to get in stores, which is the best part of making your own clothes. Was it you, Maud? You said baby spring cardigan top. Yeah. So I couldn't remember who exactly it was, but yeah, this is what I was thinking. I was thinking with babies, you can typically get away with a traditional raglan shape and it's not a problem. So I'm thinking top down raglan, solid single crochet, maybe mid waist, maybe add like a detail here and then this from the waist down. I think that would be super cute. Or I could even do lace sleeves would be cute too, and like a little lace border around the neckline. I've joined the Cowl. I saw that, Wendy. I saw that your comment, and then yeah, I'm so excited for you to be joining the Cowl. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to see your guys' cowls work up. I was going to say not a spring yarn. Exactly. It's definitely not a spring yarn. It is more a sweater yarn, but this is a spring color. So I could see that being and also the time of year, at least here, uh, it being the right season for spring items, just this wouldn't be my choice for a spring yarn. I said spring cardigan, haha, because I thought it might be light considering the name. Yes, so I totally get that. I don't know where feather came from because I wouldn't say that it's a super light yarn. DK is not even that super light of a weight. So yeah, I'm not really sure. Other than it is super soft, so maybe feather as in soft as a feather. And I don't know, kind probably just because it's cute together. But yeah, it's like a good garment yarn for me. Like I you could do sweaters and accessories, but for me, I'm like, when I feel a yarn like this, I'm like, sweater yarn. Would it make a good mitten? Oh, yeah, I think so. This super high twist on it, and that's another thing that's crazy is super high twisted yarns generally are rope-like feeling. They have like they're not that soft. This has a super high twist and is super soft. So it would be soft, warm, squishy mittens that are more hard wearing. So I do think it would actually be great for mittens. It's a perfect yarn for an open design, but I don't think I'd make it a tight stitch sweater out of it. My first thought after I watched it was lace pattern. What hook size did you use, Mocha? I know you're a tight crocheter, and the hook recommended on the ball band I feel like was way too small for this yarn already. So I'm curious to know what size hook you used, and maybe it it would benefit from going up a couple sizes, which is why I did that for the single crochet. But like I said, it's wet, which is part of the reason it has so much drape right now. But I'm excited. I think it's gonna, as long as you work it up at a loose enough gauge, I'm thinking textured sweater. In my mind, spring summer yarns are either plant-based or blends of plant-based. Acrylic is not a breathing fiber. Absolutely, yeah. Acrylic will not breathe. It will be warm. And yeah, that's what I do for spring and summer as well. I'm actually swatching, and I should have brought it over here. I can see it on my kitchen table. I'm swatching for a design submission for a spring call with this yarn from Barocco called Chai, and it is a linen silk blend. Oh, it's amazing. And I'm learning like with linen or even like spring summer type yarns, I don't really like holy fabric for garments, and I like to make garments even for spring and summer. But if you use the link double crochet, so that's why I started swatching link double crochet. You cannot even see. You know what? I'm just gonna go get it. It's not that far away. I'll be right back. See, that didn't take very long. Here it is. And this isn't my final submission. I'm literally just swatching, so I can totally share this. And even then, I'm not really giving away what I'm planning on doing. So this is Barocco Chai. It's 56% linen, 44% silk, and this is the color 8626. It is in a ball, and so, or a donut, I guess it is also called. So it kind of falls apart as you're working with it. So I also I've been swatching and frogging and swatching and frogging. So bear in mind that. But so 50% linen, 50% silk, linked double crochet. That is, do not need to wear an undershirt, spring, summer top. Yes, those are my favorite. I've been playing around with some lace patterns that I may or may not include, but I don't really like the way that the marled color of the two looks in the lace. So that's why I've been swatching and frogging and swatching and frogging. I don't know where this is going yet, but I do like this yarn, and I definitely want a top out of it for myself. Let's see. Wool blends are 100 and 100% acrylics are more fall and winter, in my opinion. Yeah, I definitely like to keep the acrylic for fall and winter. Wool, I don't mind wearing in spring and summer because it does breathe. It has like moisture wicking abilities, so it can be used in spring and summer as well, at least for me. It doesn't really get that hot here that you couldn't wear wool. But you'd want a finer weight wool for sure. Make nice shorts or skirt. The acrylic, uh, I think, yeah, for like a fall winter skirt. I don't know that I'd do shorts though. You settled on a 6 and you tried a 4 to 5. Yeah, so I used a 5 and seeing you using a 6, that makes sense. So, yeah. The project I'm working on is a linen silk blend and it feels so lovely. Yes, your top in the it's like lavender. Um, yeah, I love it. I've made a 100% linen tank top in the past, and linen can have a super rough hand to it, and so it's nice. This one blended with silk, it really takes away from that. My partner, I was showing him what I was working on, and I had him touch it, and I was like, "This is silk linen," and he goes, "It feels like denim," which denim isn't like it's rough when you compare it to like super soft acrylic or super fine merino. But when you're talking linen, the feeling of denim is a good thing. Submission for what? This is a call for design submission that I'm swatching for. I'm on a couple magazine design calls for submissions, design submissions. And so I just got one for a spring issue where they're looking for different things. I don't know how private it all is. I don't want to say exactly what they're looking for, but spring issue items. Love me some linen, right? Yes. And you love linen too. Yeah, the only downside to linen, and maybe the silk in this will help, my 100% linen tank top, I have to be very careful how I store it because it's super prone to wrinkling. Like if you leave it like crinkled at all, it wrinkles and it doesn't look very good. And you got to kind of try to steam block it out. But that's literally my only complaint. It's not the softest material, but it softens with washing and then the wrinkles. But this I really like. And again, it's that blue. So this blue specifically for me, yes, I love it. I wish we had more readily available viscose yarns for summer garments. Uh, I honestly haven't researched a ton into the viscose yarn availability. I don't think I've ever worked with a 100% viscose yarn, but I've worked with blends. The only thing that I could possibly think of for them not being super popular is that they don't fill as much space, which, the linen and silk, I had to do the link double crochet to close it up. So I guess maybe it all just depends on what you want. And I also don't really know a ton of the manufacturing behind it. I know that viscose falls under rayon, and rayons in general use a lot of toxic chemicals, so there may be complications with the production side of things. But yeah, I do like viscose from bamboo. I do like bamboo blends yarns, and I have worked with a couple 100% bamboo yarns, but they tend to be a little heavy. It gets too hot in Florida for acrylic. It gets soggy with wet and feels so gross. Are you talking about the wool? Oh, LOL, I think we get the same calls for submission emails. Yeah, we might. So you probably know what I'm talking about then. Reggie is your girl for plant-based yarn suggestions. Then there you go. Definitely ask Reggie. I know that she is a Tencel lover, which falls under rayon, if I'm not mistaken. I just got a cotton viscose blend at your LYS this past Wednesday. It wants to be a summertime. It told me, isn't that great? How the yarn it whispers to you. Like, I'm meant to be your top. Wendy is saying, I'm new to cows. Am I supposed to sign in on Monday? Nope. Monday is just when the pattern will become available. So you'll be able to start as soon as Monday, and then you just check in whenever you want to. It's very loose based timeline. It's just the 7th through the 31st, and anyone making the cowl can share and chat really within that time frame. So I'm expecting a lot of people to start sharing progress on Monday if they get to start Monday. So definitely, yeah, feel free to start sharing on Monday, or even now if you've got your yarn choices available. That sounds amazing. Yeah, it really does. No acrylic feels gross like that. Oh, acrylic. Yeah, I haven't tried to wear acrylic outside of fall and winter. And I really don't wear acrylic a lot. I mostly gravitate towards natural fibers. So I can't speak on that. Awesome. Yes, of course. All right. So moving on to let's chat So this is the part where we chat about not so crafty related things, except I do have a crafty related topic to chat about first. So, excuse me. I've been on TikTok a lot lately, and I came across this video where a gal was talking about putting the disclosure statement in your pattern that you are not allowed to sell things made from their pattern. And I've always found this to be a very interesting thing. And when I first, like, the first thought when I saw it was, can they even do this? Is this even possible? And from what I understand, from what I've seen people um, in the legal field discussing, this isn't really something that you can uphold, but it is more like a request that the designer is making that if you make things from my pattern, to please not sell them. And in the particular video that I was watching, the gal was saying that she puts like a more specific clause saying, please don't make this range of items for sale. Like, please don't make more than like 10 to 15 of this product for sale. And there's also people that will say like, you can make this pattern and sell it, but please credit me as the designer, which that one makes sense to me. I get people asking for credit where credit is due, but the whole don't sell items made from my pattern thing, it doesn't make any sense to me. And like it comes from a business perspective, and like my brain immediately was like, business to business versus business to consumer businesses. You can't really be both, because when you are both the business selling to businesses who then sell to consumer, and you're the business selling to consumer, you're competing with the businesses that you're selling to, which is why people are putting that clause in there, right? They don't want to have to compete with other people because they sell the finished items of their pattern. Why not just not sell your pattern? Like, I don't get it. Because the one comment was, you don't want to have to compete because you sell that item and you don't want to have to compete with them selling item. And then the other reason was that, these are the reasons that I read in the comments at least. The other reason is that you don't want the other person selling so much of that pattern that they are now associated with that pattern and not you, which is less financially based and more like brand based, I guess. But this is the analogy that I think of. So stick out with me. Hear me out. SpongeBob SquarePants. The secret formula for the Krabby Patty. It would be like them selling that, right? So our designs are like recipes. Here's the ingredients. Here's the combination. Here's how you cook it to get this finished product. So the Krabby Patty secret formula to create the Krabby Patty. If the Krusty Krab decided to sell the secret formula to the Chum Bucket, but say you can only sell X amount of Krabby Patties, that's just weird. Why would you just not sell it? And then, right, because you don't want the Chum Bucket to be risked being known for the Krabby Patty that's originally your recipe, and now everyone thinks it's their recipe. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Why would you not just keep it secret? Like, why, if you like, you really kind of have to choose one or the other. Are you selling patterns or are you selling finished items? I don't think that it doesn't make a lot of sense to try to be both businesses. I see you guys popping off in the chat, so let me catch up with you. Hello, Kim. Thanks for joining the live stream. Happy Saturday. That's not how crafting works. It's not legal. And that's what my understanding was as well, is that you can't legally make that ask. The only thing that I was wondering is like, when it starts to get into the art area of things where like people will sell fonts for personal use and then for business use, you have to buy a license. I'm wondering if there's some workaround there. Kim says, no. And Reggie says the answer is no, they can't. We discussed this on Yarniversity. So if you guys don't know Reggie, which I would highly doubt, but she has a Yarniversity and there's a playlist with all the past Yarniversities on there. So it looks like there's an entire Yarniversity episode dedicated to this topic that can be checked out. And Kim's chiming me in with Reggie. But my bigger question is, why would you do that though? Like, just it just doesn't make any sense to me that you would try to be both. And when I mentioned this, I didn't come from a place of like you're doing wrong or you're being wrong. It was more of a place of curiosity, like why are you creating competition for yourself? It doesn't make any sense to me. And the response was, I can do whatever I want, and I make more money selling the finished item than I do the pattern sales, which goes back to, then why even sell the Krabby Patty secret formula in the first place? You can't sell the pattern, but you can make the goods and sell. Exactly, right? You can, and even then, the law gets weird because you can't sell that specific PDF. But if you copy everything, change a few things, create your own PDF, it would be quite the battle to try to protect that original pattern even then. Once a person buys a pattern, they're free to make the item and sell it. You just can't sell the pattern. Exactly, right? And I get that. I just don't. Why would you try to request that though? Like, that's the part that I don't understand. The designer only owns the written word, and if there's a chart or picture in the pattern, whatever you make is yours. Patterns are evergreen revenue streams. Energy output once, returns over time keep coming in. Yes, I am with you on that one, Kim. I don't have a ton of pattern sales. I also don't have a ton of patterns for sale. But like my oldest pattern being one that came out in 2016, it cost me a couple $100s to create up front. And 6 years later has now paid for itself. So anything I make from here on out, it's evergreen. I'm not doing any work for it. Maybe some promotion here or there. But then the returns over time continue to come in. So yeah, I understand that. I'm down for that. Whereas when you're making products, it is work every time, work output per sale. Whoops. I read many articles on that issue. A designer in New York wanted me to sell a sweater that I made from her pattern for $750. She said if I was to sell it for less, I would have to say it was on sale. I don't think you can do that. But also, why sell your pattern if you want that much control over the design? It just doesn't, was it worth the couple of dollars you made for that one sale to try to control what people do with it? It just doesn't make any sense. Okay, I'm going to be honest. I think it is rude. In other words, stronger than YouTube likes. Why would they think they have the right to ask Cheryl not to sell the hat she made at the fall market? I don't know. I don't know. That's why I'm coming on here and asking you guys. Wendy, I agree. Yes, think recipe books. That's what I'm saying. Imagine people saying, buy my recipe book, but you're not allowed to serve the food you made. Or in a Wendy's case, you must charge X amount of dollars when you serve this recipe that is mine. It doesn't make any sense. Cheryl's a made up person. Obviously, I got that, Lacey. There's a lot of gray area and not a lot of precedents, as there haven't been many cases regarding this that have gone to trial. That too. I think it comes from a scarcity mindset, hard to let go for some people. I get that, but that's just part of running a business and having a business. You have to make these choices, and you either sell the pattern and allow someone else to get more popular selling the finished product than you, or you don't sell it and you just keep selling the product. You can't be both. And I see other businesses and other industries doing this too, trying to be the business to business and the business direct to consumer. And you can't do both. You have to choose. You're either dropping and going business to consumer, or you're staying just business to business, which a lot of business to business businesses, that's a lot of business, are going out of business because of the internet and the ability for you to go direct to consumer. So if it was me, I'd get out of the business to business deal and just go business to consumer. But that's just me. It's like an artist creating a palette, then telling artists they can't sell a painting they made with a palette, right? I mean, it'd have to be a little more specific, like specific paint mixtures. But yes, I get where you're going, and I agree. That's why when I thought of the Krabby Patty thing, I'm like, that's what it's like. And So you sell the Krabby Patty formula, and then somebody makes a Krabby Patty, and then they become known for it, and now you're upset. I don't just you that's why businesses don't sell their secret formulas. I wish I could share the name, but that probably wouldn't be politically correct. She will state it when you buy her patterns. Yeah, and that's one thing I've noticed is that especially people who are product sellers will straight up not buy from people who they know do that. So then, like, you're shooting your own foot. Why offer it in the first place? Uh, the answer to your question why is because people are greedy. You know, I don't like to call names, but um, I don't see it being any other reason. Like, yeah, I mean, you have to let go of one or the other. You can't have it all. You can't control it all. They're conflicting interests. False pride. I mean, especially with small businesses, it can be hard to get the visibility and the marketing for your product, and somebody else can be known for something that was yours, but you have to let it go. Passive income for the win. I agree. Yeah, I'm all about. Ego is awfully demanding. Kim, I think you're onto something here. Yeah, it's a mix of greed and potentially ego. Because that's the only connection I see about like designing a pattern and then somebody becoming known for making and selling that item. For me, let's just say randomly, this cardigan, which you can't make money off selling cardigans because they're worth way more than what people are willing to pay for. But say in a hypothetical world, someone started making the cover me up cardigan and they sold like hundreds and hundreds of them and like was some famous designer and they were known for the cardigan, that doesn't bother me. That doesn't bother me. If they said that it's their own pattern, that's false claims. That would bother me. Like, yeah, this is my pattern and I'm the designer. That is wrong. But to be known for it and like it would be nice to get credit, but even if credit wasn't given, like that doesn't bother me because it doesn't hurt me financially. I'm not selling the sweater. I'm selling the pattern. If I wanted to be the pattern seller, I would be the pattern product seller. I would do that instead. It just it doesn't click for me. You can do whatever you want to do. Also, you are a miserable B word. But when you tell me that, I'm not buying the stupid pattern anyway. So, so how much did she sell the pattern for? I didn't ask. I didn't even ask because that wasn't even where my curiosity was. I was just like, this is really interesting. And they're like, this is a valid thing to do. I'm like, I'm not saying it's invalid. I'm just saying I don't understand it. I find it very interesting. But I can't imagine it was more than a couple dollars. Stephanie is also a made up person. Names protected. I really don't get it either. When I see my designs made by other people, that makes me incredibly happy. Right? Right? I I feel the same way. Like I get like super excited. And it's like to me, when you make my design, it's yours. Like the design is mine, but what you made is yours. Like you chose the yarn, you are the tension, you are any minor, major adjustments. That's you. That's not me. But it feels good to me because it's a facilitation, right? Like I helped you get there, but that's you. I didn't make the pattern. You did. I made the design. I wrote the pattern. You made the product. You know what I mean? Like that's how my mind works. I recently saw someone say you can only sell a max. That's what I'm saying. A maximum of 5 plushies of this pattern. Sad thing is that some people believe this statement to be true and legal. Yes, and yes. And that was kind of the clause that this person was promoting for you to put in your pattern. And like I said, me just coming out being like, but why? Like, first of all, I don't think you can, but also second of all, why? And that's why it becomes more of a request, but it's not true and legal. In my opinion, once you sell the pattern, you have relinquished control. Yeah, and if that's an issue for you, don't sell that. Thank you. That's my words exactly. If that's an issue for you, just maybe don't sell it, especially when you're telling me that it's not your main income. Then, like, is it worth the hassle? And then also, it obviously triggers a feeling for people who could be your future pattern buyers and now will not be. It's shooting your own foot. I'm going to say it's an invalid thing to do. Oh, man, I would have commented on that. I said, oops, I made. Oh my gosh. I mean, I feel like all that would happen there is people would get extremely upset. It would like nothing else would come of it. But yeah, so that was my craft related let's chat. Other than that, how have you guys been? How has your week been? What are you working on? While you guys let me know how you are and how your week's been and what you've been having fun doing or making. I will tell you that literally my week has just been being sick. I am still sick. It's like very slight compared to last week. So like I haven't worked out at all this week. I've been taking it very easy and just like it's a very low key week. Those sweaters that I finished were almost done. The cowl that I finished was like just a couple rows away from done. So it wasn't even that much crocheting, just a couple hours. Just it's been a very downtime week for me. But it's kind of been nice. And I'm starting to feel recharged and ready to start working out again next week and ready to tackle the week and ready to start the cowl and start these sweater tests. So that's where I'm at this week. Where are you? How are you? You didn't stitch that TikTok because if you don't, I will. I haven't stitched it, but I can with a summary of what I've now learned today. But I can send you the TikTok so you can see it as well. Let's see. Yet buying sewing patterns outside of reproducing patterns, no legal statements, and big companies like McCall's in vogue. So you can buy sewing patterns outside of reproducing patterns with no legal statements. I'm not understanding what you mean here. Y'all can't take me nowhere. I'm taking you everywhere, Lacey. I designed a hat pattern as I was making it for free for the teachers that I worked with. One of the teachers asked for the pattern because she wanted to make one for herself. I gave it to her. Let me jump ahead. Then found out that she planned to make a bunch and sell them in the staff room because everyone loved them. That is funny. So this is a situation where you didn't sell the pattern, you gave it away for free, and then somebody else is making money on it, but you didn't know that ahead of time. Would you have wanted the opportunity to make a bunch of them and sell them? Or like, how do you think you could have felt better about that situation is what I want to know. I just pulled up the pattern and it says for non-commercial use only. Sorry, I'll get off this tangent. And that's the one thing that I'm wondering about what would be a workaround is non-commercial use. But again, that's one of those things where things get weird and iffy. Personal use versus commercial use and is one person making things really commercial use? But I have seen crocheted product sellers. I worked like freelance worked one time for a company that was selling crochet baby hats because people are willing to pay quite a bit for personalized hats that you can't buy in the store, and they're small enough that you can actually scale that business. And they were. I haven't checked up on them to see how they're doing now, but I was paid what I felt was a fair wage for making these baby hats, and they hired out crocheters to make these hats. So I guess that would be more commercial, but like just one person, like where do you draw the line? I'm waiting for someone to say my invented crochet. Y'all owe me money for using crochet to sell your patterns. Blah. Yeah. You can't copyright any of that stuff. Not crochet, not a stitch, not even a stitch combination. My family invented crochet. Yeah, I would not be surprised if someone tried that. Oh, I already caught that one. Sorry. I've been working on finishing the Lift Your Spirits shawl. Just a few more hours to finish, but I had some better health days. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. It's always a blessing to have good health days. Overdid it on pain. Oh, I'm sorry. Resting to prep for the cowl. Yay! Yes, definitely get the rest in. I typically overdo it in everything and burn out, so I know that feeling. My kid has been melting down. Oh my gosh, Lindsay, I'm so sorry. There are holes in my... It is parenting young children is not easy because tell me how there's holes in your yogurt. So I've been drinking wine since lunch. Well, Lindsay, you are on the East Coast, so yeah, it's well afternoon there for you. But I started my morning with a hard seltzer, and it's only 10 o'clock here. So cheers. And I don't have kids telling me there's not holes in their yogurts this morning. It's just because I felt like it. Yes, let me grab my yarn and I will be ready to go. Yes, McCall's and Vogue's only legal statement is the pattern is not to be reproduced, but nothing about selling clothes from the pattern. Exactly. I don't think you can have that control. And like Reggie said, she did a Yarniversity on it, so she probably has a lot better resourced reasons and can prove to you why you can't make that statement. I haven't done any research, so definitely check out that Yarniversity. I need to know, is the dang sweater like the must be the coolest sweater pattern? It's not a sweater, I don't even think. I think it's an accessory. I don't know. I was enjoying giving them away. I thought it was crappy of her to do. I guess another teacher stepped in and told her that was probably not kosher. So definitely in this situation, I know if it was me, if I asked somebody for the pattern for free, but then turned around and wanted to make a bunch and sell them, I would talk to you about it and be like, hey, I want to make a bunch of these for sale. How do you feel? You know, and then you can work out something between you two. And I say that more because you're not selling that pattern, are you? Maybe I missed that. But also, like, you thought you were giving it for free for personal use. Whereas, like, let's say I am a product seller and a friend of mine, I'm not selling the pattern because I don't want competition for this product, right? And a friend of mine wants it for personal use, so I give it to them. I would not want them selling it, which is why I'm not selling it. So I see that boundary. Whoops. The Better Health days were really nice, though. I am so glad. I'm sorry that it took so long to get them, though. Still working on the Granny. I know I saw your latest Granny Gingham. I'm so excited to see how that turns out. And you finished your oversized love shrug. Oh, I'm super excited to see that. I still can't believe that you used that rewind for that and it turned out the way it did. I've never worked with tape yarn like that before, and it turned out differently than I would have expected, which is why I've never bought tape yarn. So yeah, cheers. Yeah, right. I don't normally pop open alcoholic beverages early in the morning, but just today, why not? It's Saturday. This is one reason I'm getting a master's in contract law. There you go, Mocha. Get them. Get them. I'm so excited for the Cowl. It will be my first. I will no longer be a Cowl virgin. Laura, you've never done a crochet along? I guess you haven't. Well, I'm excited for you too. And I know your cowl is going to be awesome because you chose the same colors as me. Honestly, I have some question marks regarding the validity of copyright on very simple patterns, since they're possible, been around for centuries, but of course you still allowed to sell those patterns. So I think, Maud, there it's the copyright isn't necessarily on the pattern, it's on the PDF. Like that's my understanding, is that PDF, that creation of combination of words and pictures into one digital item, that item is the copyright, not the design itself, which is why design theft is like frowned upon, but technically there's not really a lot you can do about it from my understanding. But I am not a legal professional. But I know, like, I personally, it's like going back to the Krabby Patty secret formula, right? Somebody can go into the Krusty Krab and eat a Krabby Patty and go, this tastes like these ingredients, and then try to replicate it, call it something else, and sell it, and it looks like a knockoff or something different. Like, or here's a more realistic example, like Dr. Pepper. People have been trying to figure out how to create Dr. Pepper, and you've got people that get close, but it doesn't taste like Dr. Pepper. It doesn't taste like Coke. So where's that coming from? I got on a tangent that I don't even know where it's leading to. Oh, the simple patterns. So I purposely don't design things that somebody could taste, like a Krabby Patty, and then maybe could reproduce, or something more simple like salt and pepper, then could redo on their own. I like to design things that you, like a Dr. Pepper, you taste it and you're like, I see this, I see this, I see this, but that's going to be a lot of work to figure it out on my own. I'm just going to buy it because I either don't know how to do it on my own, or I don't want to spend the time to figure out how to do it on my own. So I typically don't like to put out very beginner basic patterns for that reason. But I have been asked to do that in the past because yarn companies use patterns to sell their yarn. And They want them aimed for anyone that is just starting out. And I've learned from working in a yarn shop, beginner crocheters and knitters, they don't know what they're doing. So even if they want to make a basic dishcloth, they need a pattern. But we typically offered those for free because, again, you could just, most people that are just beyond beginner could look at a dishcloth and go, well, I know how to do that. I'm not going to buy that pattern. Smart Mocha. Yeah. Mocha is, I'm excited for your degree and your future career. Also in the fashion industry, I feel like that is how knockoffs exist legally, as long as it's not an exact logo because of the creative freedoms and inspiration. Exactly. So from my understanding is that you can't pretend to be somebody else. Like you can't say, like you can be a knockoff with a similar looking logo as long as it's not identifiable as, it could be mistaken for somebody else. That's my understanding when it comes to like copyrights, is are you trying to look like them? It was a pleasant surprise, the tape yarn. Yeah, I think so too. No, not selling them. I imagine if someone wanted the hat and had the choice of freedom from me or buy from her, duh. Well, also that too. Also that too. Yay, Lori. Did Lori say something I missed? Oh, the Cowl version. I'm just thinking about how many ways you can write it down, but I guess if you just modify it by adding a family photo, you already have that copyright. Right? Right. There are ways around it. And that's why I think it's more of a thing that it's like more or less very much frowned upon. And many people in the community, once they identify someone as purposefully kind of ripping off like that, people just kind of avoid them. But like at the end of the day, like people want new and exciting designs and patterns to follow. So it's already in your best interest as a designer to come up with new and unique ideas. And that reminds me of it from what I've seen, from my perspective, it seems why is it more common in the crochet community? That's something that I haven't been able to figure out yet. Is and Lindsay has mentioned this to me before, that she was like, how come when you search for a pattern and in crochet there will be like 100 versions of the exact same design, but in knitting there's like maybe 2 or 3? And I don't know. I have never seen a clause in a knit pattern that said, do not sell more than 5 of these items, or do not sell finished products made from this design. I've never seen that in a knit pattern. Have you? I've bought more knitting patterns than I have crochet patterns, because crochet is more freeform. It's a much more visual style of needlecraft. So you can look at a design and most often be able to just see what they did. So often you don't need to buy the pattern. You just see the picture and you can recreate it for yourself based on the picture. So I don't know. Excuse me, you guys. I still have that cough. Absolutely. No, I think you're right, Divergent Crafter. It's a good way to open up beginners to more advanced patterns. But I think the thing is like, is it stealing a design? And at the end of the day, it really comes down to the only person that really knows is the original creator, honestly. Like sometimes it is intentional and sometimes it is unintentional. I have unintentionally designed basic patterns that are very similar to other people's. And that is a possibility. But then there's also the possibility that the original creator found a pattern, made maybe very minor adjustments, and then said, this is my design. It comes down to a judgment call. And then more often or not, you're going to see people who are deliberately finding patterns, making very minor changes, and then calling it their own. You'll see that repetition. How come their designs always look like other people's designs? How come they don't have anything that's original and unique? With art, the question is always if true originality exists. I understand that too. I think applies in crochet sometimes too. Yeah, I know there is also that thought that nothing is original. Everything's already been done. So that is another difficult thing to go through too. But yeah, like with art, right? Like mixing mediums, mixing styles, mixing aesthetics. Everybody kind of finds their own style that way. And a lot of people's styles overlap. Do you think it's because crochet is easier and crochet patterns are easier to make? Maybe easier to make based off of a photo. And then also just this, I don't know. I honestly don't know why it's more prevalent with crochet than knitting. And you're agreeing with Maud about does true originality exist? I mean, fundamentally, can it even? Like, we are influenced from the moment we're born by everything we hear and see and touch. There's always some sort of inspiration, whether we know where it comes from or not. I had to get off and get my car serviced. These comments have me rolling. So glad we can make you laugh today, Marquita. Would it be okay if I send you an email with the designer's name? Sure. She says her pattern is under copyright protection. I'd like your take. Definitely, Wendy. Send it over my way and I'll take a look and let you know what I think. It's a very interesting story. Lots of inventions in history were invented halfway across the... Exactly, Maud. Some trends just pop up. Yep. But with intricate designs, it is very obvious when someone tries to replicate it. Yes, yes, and yes, which is why like outside of my basic cardigans, which is more for me to learn how to design a garment from scratch, starting with the basics so that I can do more advanced, less common designs. I typically like to stay away from anything that's already been done. Like my Lift Your Spirits shawl, it will be very obvious if anyone ever tries to copy that. There's no other ghost shawl out there like it. It would just be very clear. Same with Hollow Web. Although that one's not as unique as the ghost shawl is. So yeah, it is and that's why I don't mind, because I try to stick to things that are difficult to replicate anyways. I really enjoy making crochet versions of trending knit patterns. Yeah, that's really fun too. But I don't know if I would sell the pattern. Yeah, it's a hard call. The best thing to do is to reach out to the designer and say, hey, I'm very inspired by your design and I'd like to create a crochet version and offer it. How do you feel about that? And that's more of like a respect thing, I think. But because that person would never, maybe not, maybe that person is just going to decide to offer a crochet version, but maybe they're not. So bye, Lori. Have a great day. Lacey, your crochet version isn't original. I think you could sell it. Legally, I think you could. Yes. I mean, well, legally, I know you could, because legally you can rip off patterns and sell them as long as they're slightly differently enough. But I think it becomes more of is morality the right word? I am always asking myself these questions. I think it's a class thing because crochet has always been marketed more towards toys versus knitting marketed more towards garments. I've seen that. Yeah, I do get that feel, definitely. I don't like making crocheted toys, so I stay away from that whole community. But as we mentioned, that you can only make 5 plushies, like it does seem that that's the same community that is wanting to have those classes. Toy pattern making does require any math versus you need to understand a lot of math to design garments. Yes, you can make some, well, I don't know. It depends on the complication, right? Some toy patterns, if you want to make them seamless, become very complicated math-wise, especially the realistic shaping. I've seen some amazing dragons that definitely require math, or I guess you could do the whole trial and error rip out method because it is typically one shape, one size, whereas garments are generally several sizes. But you can make some very, very basic garments, but they're not necessarily going to look the best. Also, to clarify, some crochet patterns are easier. I was thinking about the basic ones, like the half double crochet and the back loop only hat. You can look at it and tell that what was done, but not beginners. Yes, also, another reason somebody would buy a pattern that's that basic is because they don't want to have to do the math to figure out the stitch counts. So, and that's, I think, why knitters are more likely to buy a hat pattern than like crocheters, because crocheters typically you can just chain and put it on and then, make adjustments quickly and easily. With knitting, you're casting on the full brim. And then you're knitting a couple rows to find out if that even worked, because depending on the fabric, the cast on size is going to change. So it becomes a buying the math. I don't want to do the math. Just tell me what yarn, what needles, and what stitch count. Wow, it got real meta up in here. Can originality really exist? Right? I wasn't expecting that to happen. Getting meta on a Saturday. Steve saying hi to Lori. There's also people saying you have to include my Insta handle or link to my Etsy shop when you sell your finished project. I mean, I don't think you can legally do that, but it is nice, right? It is nice to credit. And if I was a product seller, I would credit the designer, especially if I was selling a lot of that item. Like, this is not my design. This is so-and-so's design. Originality exists in self. Not even identical twins are identical. That is true, right? Our individual, the way and the order in which we think is identical. That's true. I guess the originality, would it be the thought pattern can be original, but the thought is not an original thought. I mean, I guess it comes originally from, this is too meta for me, I think, Lori. Yep, legally, but then that affects my name and my karma, but I wouldn't have an issue doing like a crochet along on YouTube showing how to do it. Which I think is a good courtesy in general, but still not legally binding to say. I don't think it is legally binding either, Mod. But yeah, like a general courtesy, it becomes a going from a knit pattern to a crochet pattern is a completely different pattern using different tools. It's not the same. It's a complete different item, even if they look similar. Yeah, absolutely. It is completely the same. And you would have, like, as Lacey knows, as she does this, you have to completely figure it out from scratch. You're not taking somebody else's pattern and tweaking it. You can't just do that from knit to crochet. My favorite is the searches on Google that are like how to convert a crochet pattern to knit, how to convert you. There's no conversion. There's no one formula to just convert it. It's a professional courtesy to ask a knit designer to create and sell a crochet version. Yes, that's what I agree. Sure, but who is selling hand crochet dragons on Etsy? Nobody. I doubt there's anybody. I mean, I wouldn't be against it, but the price tag is probably much higher than what people are willing to pay. This reminds me, and I know we're getting like longer than I usually live stream, but the baby's off with dad, so I've got some time. It reminds me of my brother, who's in his mid-20s, watches Twitch streamers, and they will do, raids. And he told me they raided a gal, and I don't know her name. He didn't tell me her handle, but some popular streamer raided a gal who live streams crocheting Twitch emotes, and she the raid blew up her Etsy store. And I just felt bad for her because I'm just like, she's probably booked making these emotes for the next year. I just hope that her prices were appropriately high enough for the work that she has now allowed herself to be committed to. My kitchen sponge man is ready to make a grumpy patty now. Good afternoon. Bye, Estella. Definitely create 100%. Yeah. That makes sense. The math for knitters is more difficult. Oh, no, I don't think the math for knitters is more difficult. I think it's with crochet, you can trial and error and size to fit more easily than with knitting. You have to address all those stitches. And it takes a lot longer to guess, knit, and rip out than it does in crochet. I don't think that the math is more difficult. Also, it takes wizardry to knit, and I don't have magic powers. It is a whole nother craft. They can say that, and it would be a courtesy if you did it, but legally you don't have to, right? That's a more precise way of saying it. I've seen intricate amigurumi on Etsy at 250 euros or so. I feel like that's appropriate. Like, definitely charge for your time. If you're going to sell it, you might as well charge for your time. Because as I learned, even my dog for spinning was like, it was priced, but it wasn't priced high enough, I don't think. And it wasn't until I got that giant order that I realized, like, this is not priced high enough. You really have to think, if I got booked for full-time work at this price, and I quote full-time work because that could be different, right? 35, 40 hours, not that it's not a potential of a full-time job. So let's say you get booked for 40 hours a week work and you are now booked for an entire year. Are you happy working that for 40 hours per week for the next year for the income you'll be making for what your output is? And that's why I was worried about that emote gal, because I'm like, I learned that I wasn't charging high enough. Hopefully she had already been charging high enough before that happened. I was about to say they might be posting those crochet dragons, but they probably aren't selling. I would charge like 5,000 because that's a lot of work. It really is. Laughing at a seller. All right, guys. This is all the chat that showed up in my feed. So if you've already said something and I don't see it, I apologize in advance. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the live stream. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I really enjoy our Saturday mornings together. Oh, and here's one. Someone posted a hand-sewn life-size Pokemon on Etsy for 4,000 euros. Did not seem worth the amount of work put in my opinion, but if someone is willing to buy it. Well, I mean, that happens all the time for name brand designers too, though, right? Like, you see like items of clothing that you know did not cost thousands of dollars, but yet there they are trying to sell it. I always find that to be interesting. You feel it's kind of silly to create amigurumi to sell at markets and the pattern designer to want you to tell the random moms buying their kid an octopus who created the pattern. From a non-crochet community standpoint, that is probably super duper odd. Happy weekend. All right, thanks. Have a great week. I will. I'm now caught up. Back to my goodbyes. Happy Saturday, everybody, and I will see you next week. And until then, happy crafting. Bye.